All right, good afternoon. So today we're going to cover the ADDIe model and Gagnes' 9 events of instruction in 2 different modules. So the first one that we're going to cover is the ADDIe model. 5 steps. Lesson 1 is the analysis. Lesson 2, analyze the audience. Lesson 3 is the design. Lesson 4 is development. Lesson 5, implementation. And lesson 6, evaluation. Here's a chart that kind of goes through. The thing about the ADDIe model is it can be started at any point. So how do you implement the ADDIe model on e-learning? That's what we're going to cover. But you could start at any point. If you decide that you need to start with the design, you can do that. You can start with development. I suggest that you start with analysis. But it has to fit your needs, tailor-made to your whatever course that you're teaching. So you may already have the analysis. You may already have the audience. You might want to step down to design if you need to. The ADDIe model approach is very flexible. It's not binding. It can be started from anywhere according to needs. The core task of the letter A of ADDIe is to trace the causes and formulate solutions to problem-solving performances. For that, the teacher's guidance and counseling performance in compiling the program is based on students' real needs, guidance activities that are arranged based on priority scale, and the program is arranged in an ideal but realistic in its implementation. So not reaching for a certain goal, but keeping things within the means of the students. The analytic phase, the ADDIe model starts with the analytic phase, which often includes the assessment of needs, clarification of problems, and establishment of goals. In this stage, the researcher performed some document analysis and gathered information by studying the current moral education curriculum, basically our standards. Then the researcher looked into the teachers' and students' problems, goals, objectives, as well as teaching learning environment apart from the learner's knowledge. The second stage, where we analyze our audience, the design phase concerned with the design of objectives, specification of activities, analysis of the subject matter, and planning of lessons. It is also included the determination of methods to be used with reference to the objectives. Very similar as the design stage. In the designing phase, the methods of instructional delivery were chosen, the learning objectives created, and the theory to be implemented in the module selected. Just basically putting together the program exactly how you want it, what steps you want to come first, what assessments you want to provide, whether it's going to be summative or formative. The development phase entailed the preparation of lesson plans and activities for 11 sessions. The development of the philosophical inquiry methods for the moral education module was in accordance with the Form 2 syllabus. Implementation. After thoughtful analysis, designing, and development, the instructor should be able to begin implementation. In this stage, an observation should be taken with notations on successes and failures to begin giving you your ROI, or return on investment. Evaluation. The evaluation process consists of formative and summative evaluations, as well as revisions. Formative evaluation involves data collection in order to identify the revisions that are needed for instructions. Meanwhile, summative evaluations involves data collection in order to assess the absolute instructions. Revisions involve the making of changes with reference to the data from the formative evaluations. So that was your first, that's the ADDIe model. The second module will cover the 9 events of instruction. Lesson 1 is gaining attention. Lesson 2, informing the learner of objectives. Lesson 3, prior learning. Lesson 4, present content. Lesson 5, to provide guidance. Lesson 6, our favorite one, is practicing. Lesson 7, providing feedback. Lesson 8, assessing performance. And number 9, enhancing retention and transfer to the job or to the information learned. One of the most important considerations while using Gagnes' model of instruction is to identify the learning outcomes which are to be achieved. Gagnes' 9 events of instruction identify the mental conditions of learning that are necessary for effective learning when adult students are presented with various stimuli. This model is based on the 9 instructional events used during a teaching session. These are gaining attention, defining learning objectives, stimulating recall of prerequisite learning, presenting the stimulus material, providing learning guidance practice, providing feedback, assessing performance, and enhancing retention and transfer, whether it's to a job or to move on to the next grade. Payton's 4-step approach is a model for teaching practical skills. These are demonstration, deconstruction, explanation, and performance. Here's your chart that kind of gives you an overview of the 9 events of instruction. Again, starting at the top with gaining attention. And as you kind of move through, you see the formula ending with the enhancing retention. And then you start over to begin the next task and basically start over. So the first step is gaining attention. In order to facilitate audience assimilation of the content to be presented, gaining their attention is an essential step of the teaching process. We all know you have to grab those children, get them engaged, or I'm sorry, not children, but students, get them engaged, bring them in, give them something that they can look forward to, something they may not know or be aware of. To ensure the participants are ready to learn and participate, the session commences with a group activity designed to allow members to interact and establish relationships with one another and minimize the sense of being in an unfamiliar learning environment. A lot of times you get these as icebreakers. Informing participants of objectives. After the introduction, participants are apprised of the learning objectives to aid their learning process. These objectives intend to list skills and proficiencies the participants will hopefully be able to achieve after the lesson. Stimulating recall of prior learning. It is vital to assimilate prior experience and personal experiences when dealing with new information. As Gagnes suggested, previously acquired knowledge must be accessible during the process of the current learning event. This helps to facilitate the learning process by allowing participants to integrate this new learning into their own reality by interpreting it based on the previous. Eliciting performance. In order to ensure that the participants continue to be in a state of mind conducive to learning and restore their endurance, a short coffee break should be allowed before moving on to the next task. This next task is a major part of the learning session and involves allowing participants to learn through performing the procedure themselves. And not even a coffee break. If you're looking at high school students or possibly younger, that's the time when students can get up and stretch. You know, when you stretch, it kind of calms you down, helps you focus. You take a couple of deep breaths. You take a second to pause. You kind of gather your thoughts, and then you can move on to the next step. Assessing performance. Following the practice session, participants will be required to demonstrate their procedural skills. They will be assessed on how they approach the patient, their communication skills, their overall performance. The assessment checklist that we're going to see on the next page is used to grade participants and is also a platform for feedback from the instructor and contains a comment box. Enhancing retention and transfer. The participants should reflect on the feedback provided and compare them to their own self-evaluation to identify points to improve on and formulate personal actions plans to further their proficiency. So when you look at this checklist, the students and the teachers or professors both fill it out. That allows the student to go back and compare where they feel like they are based on what the teacher or professor feels like they were at. This is just a quick example of a medical form that we use, but it can be the same thing. You can manipulate it so that it works either direction. Thank you.